I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today until 6 o'clock. We'll have Friendship Girls Basketball on the air tonight at Double T 97.3, or on Double T 97.3, rather, as they take on Cooper. Followed at 7:30 by the Friendship Boys Basketball team, also taking on Cooper. On 100.7, the score will have NBA basketball. The Cows versus the Seven Burrs.
I've been a huge Cows fan.
Yeah, I'm just going off of what it looks like, what it reads as. Clearly, it's Cavaliers versus 76ers, but yeah, McGuire can't write.
Hey man,
for
don't
crap.
knock Moo Nation. We've been around for a while in the NBA.
I have no idea. It's like an upside down Y in the friendships. It's just a disaster. Love to get your thoughts and comments today on the EH Flooring Center chat line at double T973.com. Dr. Mike Gustafson will be joining us shortly. And I tell you what, he better have some kind of drive-through snack for us.
There's a McDonald's right there.
Better be. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what I just knew that he was in a drive-through. We don't know what type of drive-through.
Well, I'm assuming McDonald's because I think the McRib is back. So I thought he saw that and just dropped everything.
He ordered ahead on the app.
Okay.
So that might narrow it down. I don't know if like Burger King has an app or anything, but either way.
It is crazy, though, how many things that I wouldn't use an app for do have an app. Most of them are fast food places, though. I feel like that's got to be you order it and get it as fresh as possible.
I've become very hooked on ordering the groceries and then picking them up.
Oh, yeah. That's the best.
That is Jetsons to me. Like you can keep flying cars. If I can just keep doing that, I'll be in good shape. I've got a lot to talk about today. We have I've got a story for you gentlemen, and I'm going to save it until Gus gets here, whenever that is, because I think that he'll probably appreciate it on some level more than you, although you'll appreciate it on some level more than him. It'll make sense when I tell it. We have an interesting story today from Ross Dellinger about the future of what college football, or at least major college football, will look like or could look like. And here's the teaser. The schism, right? The split, the reality of pay for play. I feel like for a while we've kind of thought that would be way out in the distance. But it's probably going to be here before you know it. And so we'll chop that up on the program today. Of course, we'll talk some Texas Tech football. Gus is here. I don't see any extra bags.
I see a lack of fries. No yield in any ways.
Although you were right.
I knew it.
It was.
There's a McDonald's right there.
Some tofu burgers. That's what you like, right? Tofu burgers.
Look at Clint. He's never been more disappointed in me.
I would eat the bread. If it had like mayonnaise and cheese, I'd eat that. But I'd throw the tofu part away.
I wouldn't even know what
Just bread, mayonnaise, and cheese?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
I guess it's a grilled cheese.
It's just it's an uncooked grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah, the uncooked
it's
part.
It's a natty grilled cheese.
I have a problem with it being uncooked.
Hey, so I have a story for you.
All right.
But I have to do a little bit of research before I might have forgotten. Okay, here we go. Have you heard of Bob Watson?
Yeah, the old baseball player. His GM. Yeah, he scored like the millionth run in baseball history or something like that.
Started his career with the Astros.
Yeah.
Played
Solid.
with them from 66 through 79. Is in the franchise. Yeah. He's in the franchise's Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not an amazing all-time player, not an MLB Hall of Famer, but a good player, two-time All-Star. He bounced around a little bit later in his career. After the Astros, he spent like one season with the Red Sox, and then he was with the Yankees for a couple of years. And then in 1982, the New York Yankees traded him to the Atlanta Braves for a AAA pitcher. Right?
Okay.
That AAA pitcher, Scott Patterson, who, I don't expect anybody to know who he is from a baseball standpoint, but he would go on to become an actor, and among many other roles, played Luke on Gilmore Girls.
Really?
How about that, dude?
That is cool.
He was in Little Big League. He was in a couple of Saw movies. He's been on a bunch of TV shows, including Gilmore Girls. But how about that?
That's very cool. I had not heard that. Very nice. What was the you talking about the? It's not Little Big League. It was one of those other kid kind of baseball movies.
Angels in the Outfield.
Maybe the player who's the mom in the show, in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Her kid debuted for the Cubs this year.
Wow.
Angels. See if this is the right one.
Or what was the one with the kid that played for the Cubs and he had that?
The rookie of the year.
There we go. I think in fact, I think that's
movie.
it. I think that's it, and I think which is furthers the irony of this story because her son, Pete Crow Armstrong, played with the Cubs this year and made his big league debut. It's like a good player. I'm gonna find this. Dang it.
Throughout the program today, we'd love to hear what you have to say on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3. You can also weigh in through Double T 97.3.com. Sorry, I forgot that very important part. And then you can also weigh in through the Double T 97.3 mobile app presented by Happy State Bank. Did I buy you enough time, or are you still looking?
Little Big League. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She was, and then her son is, she was the mom in that show, and then her real life son, Pete Crow Armstrong, was selected 19th overall in the 2020 draft and made his debut this September. You play the mother of this baseball player thing, and she kind of got out of the acting game to raise the kid, and then he becomes this baseball player. Like, how star-crossed.
More Tech Talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hey there, how you going? It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Gus and with Clint. I'm Aaron. We're joining you today until 6. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. Someone asks this: what is Gilmore Girls soap opera ? It is a long-running television show that was on the CW for a long time. It ran from 2000 to 2007. There were 7 seasons, and then I guess like a follow-up, maybe Netflix movie or something. 153 episodes, and I've never sat down and watched an entire episode, but the wife, and Clint, I think, is the same way. The wife has watched it so much over and over and over again over the years that I feel like I have a pretty good handle on the broad strokes of the story.
It is her comfort show, or one of them, like handful of comfort shows that has been restarted a bunch. And like I told you guys, like it just recently started back up in the house like a couple weeks ago, and it never fails. The cold front It's like flying south to the winter, but all of a sudden I start hearing that theme song around the house.
It's like when you have that knee pain, you know it's about to get cold, and that's the Gilmore Girls. This from Duff in Houston. What is the new recruiting news that Zach is tweeting about? So Zach Kitley has kind of hit the bat signal, so to speak, on Twitter. I don't know that it's been announced yet or reported, but once that one of those two things happens, we'll share it with you. But my guess is it's for 2025.
Yeah, I would think so. If it's because you'd think the high school group is probably put together by now.
Yes,
and portal stuff is not yet
right.
Not
now. They probably. I mean, let me just put it this way. I think that across college football, there are probably some staffs in some places that have a pretty good idea of who, or at least some of who they will land in the portal, right? Even though that stuff isn't like official yet. It's kind of like NBA free agency,
some
right?
Back channel stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing how some of those deals are announced right at, 12:01.
Yeah.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. My wife rewatches Gilmore Girls just like y'all's wives. Yeah, it just must be it's a wife thing, I guess.
Dana's watched it. My wife has watched it, but the one I've caught watching it recently is my daughter, which, it's before her time. She would have been, what'd you say, 2000, 2007? She would have been like birth to 7 years old. But, I walked through the living room maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she was in there, doing that deal. And I was asking all the questions, like, all right, what do we got here? And, caught just enough of it, did a little wiki thing, because I remember it, did a little wiki thing.
Wiki.
Yes.
Let's get it on.
Got some, okay, this one's trying to get into Yale, and, this one's divorced, or whatever, all the stuff. The worst thing is it's, like I see it all, and I see the lady. I'm like, oh, that's the lady from all the 10 shows after that, like not knowing that, oh, no, it all started with Gilmore Girls.
Somebody else says my girlfriend and her mom are obsessed with that show. I can't stand it. This in the chat line, Kitley does not need to be recruiting anyone. He needs to be shown the door! ! DPI. Okay. I mean, I don't agree, but thank you for texting. Someone else says Lauren Graham is attractive.
Confirmed.
Tater says this. Wow, Gilmore Girls, Vampire Diaries, and Gossip Girl on the wife's constant playlist. My wife will do that with Vampire Diaries up until a certain point. And she says, this is when it gets weird. And I didn't like it after this. So she'll just kind of start over from the beginning. I don't know that she's ever seen Gossip Girl.
That's one on my wife is in on the Gossip.
I'll have to check in on that.
Savannah, and I know Savannah. I'd have to get some clarity on that from my wife, but I think Savannah's done the same thing there. That's the other one. It's like those two seem to be.
I actually wanted to when I was trying to wanted to watch watch The Boys, and if you've watched The Boys before, The Deep is on Gossip Girl, so it was like to get her to watch. It was like it has a Gossip Girl character on there.
Who was just Lauren Graham?
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember looking this up. Now I'm googling her, but Lauren Graham and I are almost exactly like within 6 weeks of each other age wise. And this was an interesting little nugget here. She has a degree from a Southern Methodist University.
How about that?
Master's.
Big ACC fan.
After moving to Texas in 1992, she earned a Master of Fine Arts degree in acting performance from Southern Methodist University. Undergraduate from Bernard College of Columbia University. Not fake Ivy, right? Where do you draw the line at fake Ivy? Like Cornell, Dartmouth? What's your bottom? Brown? Isn't it like Brown?
Dartmouth for sure. Cornell probably. Brown probably. Kind of iffy on Penn. Just kind of depends on when you ask me.
Okay. Okay.
So right now.
So good on at this moment.
They're okay.
Penn's sitting pretty because they beat Villanova and we play them tomorrow. That's what AD's got that
Sounds
going
like
over there.
the recruiting news is about a 2025 offensive player who has been, I guess, offered. So
I like it.
someone
Hopefully
at this point right now, if you're getting commitments for the next year's class from players that you've already offered, these are people that you really want, right? That you didn't need to see any kind of
Top of your list.
spring film, or we don't need to go see him and check him out and kind of make sure, or that you feel really good about adding to your class. And so any kids that you get early, any prospects rather, no matter what they're ranked right now, that's so pointless. It's a big deal. And so excited to kind of see what ends up happening here.
Just give me a big road grader. I don't care.
Yeah.
Fullback, tackle.
That's not what you said the other day.
You just go out and get a tall, majestic, beautiful man. Hey, tall, majestic, beautiful could be 6'7", 295. Road grading, right?
This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. 2 words, Dawson's Creek cringe.
Dawson's Creek's another one where that show seemed to spawn about 7 acting careers.
Yeah. Somebody says this, single dad with a 10-year-old boy, all football and 5 nights at Freddy's, no clue about those other shows, LOL. Hey, man. Yeah, you're doing it right there. Raiders dad says this, Lauren Graham looks infinitely more attractive than you, Gus.
I know. The extra 6 weeks of wear and tear that I have on my body.
Whoa.
Hey, oh.
I agree. I mean, if I took my shirt off and she took her shirt off, I'd be way more interested in her shirt off.
I could be showing my buttocks.
What kind of shirt is that?
I don't know, but it's laying on the floor.
Is that cotton or is that polyester? Where did you get it?
Hand it to me. Let me look at your shirt.
Is that from Ross Dress for Less?
I saw something similar at TJ Maxx.
That reminds me, I need some acid wash overalls. You know, we need to go way back to June 2022 and my infancy on this show. It's been a minute since
It's around the ankle.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess I know what rejoiner I'm playing next.
That's right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for that
You
decision.
bet. Yeah, that's right. And I still like beer 18 months later, so.
Coming up, we will break. Did you see this? The article from Ross Dellinger this morning about the immediate future, or the not so distant future is perhaps a better way to put it, of college football.
No.
We will discuss it. The future is barreling toward us all. That's coming up next on Double T 97.3.
This one's trying to get into Yale.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hello there. How you going? It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Gus and Clint. I'm Aaron. We're joining you today until 6 o'clock. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. So, Ross Dellinger had an interesting article today. He covers college sports for Yahoo Sports. And he talked with Maryland AD Damon Evans. Now, Maryland is not some kind of athletic powerhouse. Tell me I'm wrong.
Hey, oh.
But they're in the Big Ten, right? They have a seat at one of the big tables.
Yep.
And he is certainly privy to a lot. And he put out there vocally on the record what apparently has kind of been privately whispered for a while. And that is that within 5 years, let me say this again, within 5 years, and maybe even sooner, the Power 5 conference as we know it, that structure will operate, and this is a quote from the story, will operate from under a new governance structure that features an athlete revenue sharing model.
Which is not to say that they'll move outside of the NCAA, but the NCAA is going to be acting entirely different.
Don't know what it looks like.
Right. I mean, because he compliments, he compliments Charlie Baker,
Right.
and says he's the right leader for this. And so it's, whether he is or not, I don't know, but it's not necessarily to say that, because there's been a lot of sort of doomsday predictions of people that are going to jump out, give the double rods to the NCAA and create their own. And that may still happen, but that's not what is necessarily being predicted here for what that's worth.
This is Evans, again, Maryland AD, his quote. I do believe 5 years from now that we will be at a point where we are sharing revenue with student athletes.
And I don't think I don't think he's standing on an island.
No.
With that, I think, and I think that would be something that's probably reflected here locally. I don't think Texas Tech leadership would be, in some way, shape, or form, complete 180 from that. I think they would all be speaking in the same direction.
I think
there.
if you are leading an athletic department in the Power Five and you are not actively planning for this and budgeting for this down the line and making plans for this, then you're committing malpractice.
Right.
You're not doing your job. Your head is in the sand. I mean, this is coming. It's not like a hypothetical or, hey, this could happen. It's coming, and get ready. There's a case going through the court right now that is seeking billions of dollars in damages in retroactive NIL and broadcasting revenue payments. And, depending on how that goes, if there's a settlement, every FBS school might have to cough up $5 to $10 million to kind of chip in for their bid at this.
And so if you're halfway listening and not really comprehending this isn't about this conversation has two directions to it. If you're putting it on a timeline, not only are we talking about this is what the future is going to involve, revenue sharing. This isn't a lawsuit that's just going to set forth a day in which revenue sharing is a reality. This is a lawsuit in which they're going back for some damages. And that's the part that's a little bit uncertain because, folks might be, again, if you went to an athletic director and say, hey, are you prepared to budget $5 million a year for this or $10 million a year for this in 2030? They may all say yes, and that may be something that they can wrap their brain around. But this is okay. What about I would call it dead money. It's not really dead money, but what about money that's you're about to be assessed that is back pay? And I guess that would mean, an athlete who participated in 2017. I don't know how far it goes back. It sounds
Right.
like 2015, maybe. I don't know. The date that's mentioned. I don't know where it's going. Maybe it just has to do with the lawsuit that a single individual has brought who participated from 15 to 18 or whatever. I don't know. But I doubt Mike Gustafson in 1989 is going to get $7 sent to him for all those baseball games I played.
And so, I mean, this is, if you are Boise State, right? If you're Liberty, if you're Memphis, if you're USF, if you are San Diego State, right? And you want to compete at that level, you feel like you belong. I don't know if there's going to be an avenue for you to kind of opt in, right? And I don't know how separate, right, or how big those barriers will be. Like, a lot of details still to be hammered out. Really, all the details, but like, if you, because fundamentally, this is not about like, hey, some stipends, right? Some cost of attendance. This is, we're broadcasting these games on television, and our athletes are getting a cut, right? And some of these schools won't be able to do this, right? But Boise State, can they afford that? I mean, North Texas, I would imagine can't. UTEP, I would imagine cannot. Rice would not be interested in that. UTSA, I mean, I don't think that they have that kind of money. So what does that do to the group of five? Are they just completely and further separated? You know? And another part of that too is, how does that affect recruiting and the transfer portal? Because right now, right, if I'm some kind of mid-tier Power 5 quarterback, but I don't have a starting job, I can go transfer down to Memphis, to UTSA, to SMU, at least right now, and play and have a good time. But, it's 6 years from now, that might cost me a bunch of money.
Yeah, some opportunity cost.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to, I think, because right now with NIL, I think that we all know intellectually that these guys are getting paid. They're either a team-wide deal or they have a separate deal, and the same for college basketball. But if you woke up from a 10-year coma and sat down on your sofa and watched college football, you really wouldn't know the difference. Right, I mean the game is still the same.
Yeah.
The schedules are largely still the same, conference realignment notwithstanding. But if there's this bigger separation between the power conferences and the non-power conferences, are they even playing anymore?
Boy, and it's easy to see and I'm not saying this to pick on them, but it's easy to see an AAU private like Rice step away and be probably pretty content with it. In a sort of University Chicago-like move, like, hey, we're
about Stanford.
Yeah, well, that would be the
Cal.
much bigger one.
Yeah.
Those would be the much bigger ones, and you start looking at Vanderbilt and some of those now. Where at that point you're talking about where is the separation coming?
More Tech Talk next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hey there, how you going? It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Gus and Clint, I'm Aaron. We're joining you today from the First United Bank studio, here with you until 6 o'clock. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. We'll have a friendship basketball girl-boy doubleheader beginning at 6 on Double T 97.3. Girls up first against Cooper, and the boys will follow also against Cooper.
Hey, Claude, are you on that call tonight there, big boy?
Yep, Joyce and I will be on the call, live on location.
Nice. So you're about to head out of here, right?
Yeah, in about an hour or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Would each school pay their athletes from the school's sports revenue, or is this a national pool of money each school contributes to? Sharing the revenue with student athletes would basically allow schools like UT to pay student athletes directly instead of through NIL. How do we compete with that? So my guess is that this would be like every school in the conference would pay the same. You're right, because it would be probably it would be relative to the conference's deal. Now maybe there's not an appetite for that, right? Maybe the SEC and the Big Ten and the SEC don't want to pay more than the Big 12 or the ACC. I could see why they would want to, because I would think it would give them an advantage in recruiting. But maybe they all agree, let's all pay the same amount, and it comes out of our college football playoff money or something. But I would be shocked if there was a situation where a school, like one school, can decide what they pay. No. My guess is that this would be collectively bargained, right? Kind of both sides would agree on kind of, I don't know. It's going to be a mess, a lot to get through, but it's coming.
Yeah, I don't. That's. I would think the variance. I mean, because NIL doesn't go away, right?
Right.
And so I would think the variance is there. In other words, there may be some way to collectively bargain a scale of pay, a percentage that Purdue pays and Texas Tech pays and whatever their athletes are, right. And the interesting thing here is we're Title IX. How's that gonna factor in non-revenue sports, that sort of thing, or Olympic sports, whatever the phrase is. That'll be an interesting layer to all of this. But NIL, a kid that's over here, with 5 million followers, like the twin basketball players were talking about, the one that committed to twins. Yeah, the one that committed to TCU last week. Her capacity for NIL is going to be considerably larger than someone who's a recipient of sort of a locker room deal for $25,000.
Well, and maybe this, if you're going to move to paying players, right, revenue sharing with players, then there shouldn't be any further restrictions on NIL in terms of, hey, you can't pay for play or it can't be an inducement. I mean, all of that's out.
Right.
Like that charade is over and done with. And so maybe your NIL deals, maybe your team-wide NIL deals can be modified to include, bonuses for specific stat plateau milestones. Maybe it's different for positions. Like, hey, if you're a quarterback, probably get a little bit more money. If you're a deep snapper, then maybe you don't. There are way more questions than answers at this point. I think the only kind of certainty is that at some point before 2030, you're going to be, the college players that you watch on television on Saturdays will be sharing in the revenue television-wise. This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. What will happen to Oregon State and Washington State?
Oof. That's a literally $1 million question. It could be about a $30 million question. I guess there was wasn't there some clarity offered to those two over the weekend or late last week about over the next couple of years that they in fact do control, when these schools left, they lost their position on the board of directors.
Yeah, they won the appeal or whatever. They won the initial case. They won the appeal. I'm sure it's being elevated again. So it's not like the end. But as of right now, the only two active members of the Pac-12 board of directors with voting powers, et cetera, are Oregon State and Wazoo. The other current members of the Pac-12 can attend those meetings. They're supposed to be consulted, but ultimately decision making is in the hands of OSU and WSU. And they're in an interesting spot because for the time being, they've got a spot on the college football playoff committee, right? On the playoff board of directors. And those decisions have to be made unanimously. If we're going to do 5 and 7 or expand to 12 or whatever it might be, and maybe that structure changes going into the next contract, but at least right now they have some leverage. And so they can exact some kind of financial benefit for those two programs in exchange for rubber stamping whatever votes they want to get through. But
I'll be curious to know the difference between revenue sharing and employee. It doesn't sound like that's where we're headed with this. Revenue sharing is over here, employee is over here. And I guess one of the key elements to the employee word, the E word, has to do with the medical care and some of that long-term health and access to some benefits that don't seem to be a part of this revenue sharing model.
That's a good point. this in the chat line: will the universities hold their ground and demand that athletes be students enrolled in school and make progress toward graduation? I believe competing athletes that are nothing more than paid employees would not go over well with most supporters. I could be wrong. I certainly have been wrong before. It's from Washed Up Guy. We'll get to that text after the break. Next on Double T 97.3.
It's every Red Raiders favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Gus and Clint. I'm Aaron. We're joining you today until 6 o'clock. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments on the H Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. All guests appear via the Visual Edge IT hotline. So before the break, we had this question come in, or this comment really, from Washed Up Guy. He says this: will universities hold their ground and demand that athletes be students enrolled in school and be making progress toward graduation? I believe competing athletes that are nothing more than paid employees would not go over well with most supporters. I could be wrong. I certainly have been wrong before. I guess my question for you, Washed Up Guy, is at its most fundamental level, what is the difference for you personally as a sports fan, as a college sports fan, watching Tyler Shuck, who is maybe taking one online class, right, as part of maybe a second master's,
Right.
or a sophomore offensive lineman who is taking a bunch of online courses, maybe has one in-person course as part of an interdisciplinary studies degree, right? For the most part, at this level, not every player, but a good chunk of them are here for football, right? And they have every resource available to them in terms of tutors and aides, and help with scheduling and all this stuff, and they're there to play football, and the degree just kind of comes with it. I think that the days of, and I don't know how old Washed Up Guy is, I would guess by the nickname that he's not, 22 years old. Hard to be washed up at 22, unless you're like a gymnast. If you're an Olympic gymnast, you're probably washed up at 22. But I digress. When I was in school, right, I would see these players in class. I would see basketball players in class. I'd see them at the BA or at Holden Hall, or by the English building, or walking to and from class. And I'm sure that was the same with you. And heck, you were an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you saw yourself in class all the time.
Yep, no doubt.
But I think those days are gone. And I don't think they're coming back. So I guess I just don't really understand how much your enjoyment is affected by whether or not Tyler Shuck has ever stepped foot in Holden Hall. I would bet all the money in my bank account right now that he's never stepped foot in Holden Hall.
You and I have had this conversation or something close to this, or maybe a cousin of this conversation before, and it does feel like there's something there in terms of it's like, I don't know if it's embracing more of the idea that I want them to be students, or if it's us sort of turning away from the idea that we don't want them to just be mercenaries playing for the Lubbock Red Raiders as opposed to our university. It's like we want some shared experience, some connectivity to them. But really, in the last, probably since COVID, unfortunately, and I don't know that were it not for COVID, this never would have happened, because I think we were drifting that direction anyway. But there's less and less, especially for these guys, in-person attendance. Now, that can also vary due to degree plan and a senior financial planning major or something is only going to get to that class. Like there's the guy that's got to be in there at 10 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as opposed to, like you said, the sophomore interdisciplinary that can kind of has a lot more flexibility in their degree program, at least in the earlier stages. Regardless, there's some. Again, I don't know if it's turning toward we want them to all be students and happy fellow alumni, or if we're turning away from the mercenary idea. But it feels like to me, it as I find myself agreeing with our texter, washed up guy, I feel like I'm turning away from this over here. I feel like I'm turning away from the idea of them as mercenaries. I want some connectivity. The athlete experience has always been a little bit different at the very least.
Sure.
And in some ways you could say it's a lot different. But I sure do like the thought of them loving this university as much as I do, with some idea of
some common
thread.
shared experiences.
Yeah. That when they graduate, they're proud of it, and maybe they go stand over there in line at the seal, and happy mom and dad take a picture of them in their regalia and all that, in a way that, and the diploma and all that stuff is on the wall, and in a way that their pride extends to a common ground other than the 6 times a year I would go to the football stadium and watch them.
Did Pat Mahomes graduate?
I would think not. Although, dual credit these days, I don't know. Who I saw this today. In fact, AD, I sent it to myself just as I was walking out the door to head over here. But Buster Posey, who had a really nice big league career for Bruce Bochy, for the who you booing there, Bochy?
No, that was the Giants team, the beat the Royals. I was just kidding.
Oh, that's fine. I was making sure I was clear on that. But this fall, Posey had been a 3-year guy. Naturally, he was one of the top picks in the 2008 draft, and great career, probably borderline Hall of Famer. But he re-enrolled this fall because he's probably a semester or 2 away, and and so those things will happen. Michael Jordan did that famously, but I don't know.
He didn't. Yeah, I mean, Mahomes didn't graduate.
Yeah,
and this town is, Kansas City
Gaga
South
over him
on Sundays,
that's
essentially.
Right, that's right.
And his name is on the stadium, and I think that every Tech fan, even if you hate the Chiefs like I do, appreciates the heck out of Pat for staying so connected to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And being integral to this Adidas deal, and still going to games on the road, and going to basketball games, and repping the double T. And so I just don't. I've never once thought, as someone who watches these games, I wonder what their GPA is, or
Sure.
I just think that the days of those shared, connected experiences, and heck, like John Plefka, if you're a Tech basketball fan, you probably remember that name from the Bob Knight era. I roomed with him in summer school, right? I don't think that happens anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
This has been the Tech Talk Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.